welcome to another chat series, which is all about personal branding. My objective with these chat sessions is to get different perspectives of how personal branding works. You talk about personal branding, different people say different stories. Some people say it's about LinkedIn, some people say it's about Facebook, but there's a whole different chunk or iceberg that lies below whatever you see out there. So my objective here is to make personal branding accessible to all and to get an idea of what it is about. So today we have Michael Lambert with us. When I posted this on LinkedIn, everyone said he is an awesome guy to talk to. Everyone kind of knows him. He works as a lead developer, and he has done a lot of work in the personal branding front. So I thought, let's invite him and have a conversation on how personal branding can be important for IT professionals and professionals in general. So welcome, Lambert. How are you?
Not bad. And yourself, Vinesh?
Good. So yeah, you seem to be a popular figure. Whoever I talk to, they kind of know you. In a meetup that I think the first U version 2.0 meetup that I organized, the 5 coaches, when I said Michael, everyone is like, hey, I know Michael. And so you're kind of popular figure. So what do you do, Michael? I mean, you can probably introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm a lead developer at Vault Intelligence. It's effectively, or kind of a de facto CTO role at the moment. There's a bit of a transformation happening there. I actually started the role just as the whole COVID-19 thing was kicking off. So I spent 2 hours in the office before we got sent to work from home. So it's been an interesting experience. But I guess, especially in terms of the personal branding side of things, that's the the first significant step in the journey I've been taking for the last 18 months or so. I very much learnt how to discover what I was passionate about, what I really wanted to get into. Met a whole lot of people that have different skills that were able to help me on my personal branding journey and help me to ultimately find a job that I'm amazingly happy with and loving every minute of. I guess a little bit of background on me. I started an internet access provider back in the mid-90s.
That's a long time.
25 years of development.
Yeah.
So I've gone through a whole range of different things, always related to the internet. And up until probably 3 or 4 years ago, I always saw myself as being a coder until I retired. At this point, that's all changed completely, and I'm now thinking of coding as going back to being a hobby, and I enjoyed it so much more at that point. So I've sort of taken a huge change in career direction over the last few years, and especially in the last 12 to 18 months, as I've sort of got more into the personal branding, that's really enabled me to make that change and to identify that I needed to make that change.
Brilliant. So I think there is a long history and a long journey. I'm excited for this conversation. I'll have a lot of space in your brain to pick, I'm sure. By the way, I forgot to welcome all our viewers. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube right now. So please keep us engaged. Give us a feeling that someone is watching us. Otherwise, we'll be just random souls having a boring conversation. Don't give that impression out. So say hi, say hello. If you have any questions anytime, please put it on any of the platforms, and I'll pick it up, and we'll try to answer the best we can. So please keep us engaged and keep us happy. So I know there's a lot of history in you, Michael, but I think we'll probably pick on the personal branding side of things. Otherwise, we'll probably stay here for a long time. Getting right into things, what is personal branding for you?
I think it's a whole lot of different things. I guess the key aspect of it for me was aligning my wants, needs, my interests, my passions, and my skill set to help me find a career path that would make me really excited about work and ensure that I was able to be the best I could be and that I enjoyed going to work every day. So it's a tool to enable something like that rather than being a particular thing itself. So there's a whole lot of different aspects to it. I've got certain strengths that over my career have come fairly naturally to me, and I've been able to maintain them. But I also started recognizing that where I wanted my career to go meant that I had to increase my skills in other areas, and then work out how to tell everyone else that I have these skills, I have these interests, and they're beneficial to the companies that are out there. So I guess one of the things that I really struggled with, having over 20 years of programming experience, was breaking the mold of a developer and letting people know that I have the ability to be strategic. I have the ability to focus on people, not just on code. So I had to work out how to get that message out to the world. But I guess the first step on the journey was working out that I actually had to get that message out to the world.
Yeah. So that was where I was about to get to. So you mentioned that getting out that message out is probably the second step of personal branding. But the first step is to figure out that, hey, this is what you want. So why is that so important, and why is it important to having clarity, and why is it important to paint a brand for every individual? I mean, brand is a term probably a decade ago. I'm not as experienced as you, but I'm assuming a decade ago, it wasn't really a thing. Brands have, companies have brands, organizations have brands, but personal brand was not a thing at all. So what do you think has changed in the past maybe a decade, and what is leading this change?
I think personal branding's always been there. It's just changed.
Yeah.
For anyone who's watching, that's my cat hiding in the corner, making an appearance every so often. She likes to join us on video calls. Her name is Pearl. And I think she's becoming part of my brand. I think she's part of my brand at this point. Maybe my mascot. Yeah, I think personal branding's always been around. We just haven't realized it, and it's changed in the way that it's presented. Mm-hmm. I think we used to brand ourselves to suit an employer. So it was very much, you look at the traditional sort of roles. If you wanted to be a successful leader, you had to wear a suit and tie. Mm-hmm. That's aligning your brand with what the employer, or what the customer in this case, is wanting. Over time, I think employers have started to realize that there's an extreme value to diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of culture. So it's meant we can now be more true to ourselves. But as people, we still fall back into the old way of doing things of, if I dress a certain way and act a certain way, that will fulfill what the employer wants. So there's a portion of it that's having the courage to overcome that, be true to ourselves, tell everyone, this is me, this is the real me. I'm not pretending to be something different. Mm-hmm. And because I'm different to the person next to me, I can add value.
Yeah.
And I guess why I see that as so important is work makes up such a huge part of our life. We're probably going to, for most of us, including a little bit of travel time, we'll spend more than half of our waking hours every week working for about 40 years, possibly more. So if we're unhappy with what we're doing at work, we're not going to be happy with our life.
Yeah.
So for me, a big part of the whole personal branding was understanding what makes me tick, what gets me motivated every day, what are my interests, how can I find fulfillment, and then how can I find a role that adds to all of that and doesn't detract from it. So it was getting all of that confidence together, working out that being an individual is a positive thing, and telling everyone, I am me, I'm an individual, accept me as I am, and I will add value.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it. I mean, I think when it comes to work, it might be different for different individuals, but work is work. That is something that you get done, and that pays your bills. I mean, that was the attitude probably a decade ago, and you just get things done. You do the grind, you get things done, and people may, I'm not talking about everyone, but some people enjoy it, but some people it's just work for them. But now we are in a age or we are in a time period where you can actually enjoy what you do, and you can do whatever you want, and that's important. And when you do that, it can take you to another level. It can make you so happier in life. So rather than considering work as work, it becomes something that you look forward to and you enjoy, and that's very important. So
definitely.
So you actually touched on that point, saying that you had to figure out what ticks you, right? What do you exactly mean by that, and what can you zoom in a bit on that aspect, because I don't think everyone gets that, or how to one thing is to figure out that there's something that ticks you, and another thing is how to go deep into it and understand and get a picture of that.
Yeah, I guess in my case, I started exploring a lot. And when I say exploring, I was finding out what are the things that I'm passionate about. So I started attending a lot of meetups. And I actually wrote an article at one point. I did 6 meetups in 6 days. I actually did 7 in 8 days, but it didn't sound as good in the title. And I learned a lot about myself doing that. They were all very different meetups. Some were technical, some were very agile based, some were more leadership and management based. And I found the bits that interested me. I slowly came out of my shell and learned that it was okay to talk to people at these meetups. And I discovered that I have a whole range of knowledge that I didn't realize I had. So,
can you give an example?
Getting into that, I guess I went to a number of agile-based meetups, and I found that a lot of them I connected with very well, and I realized I was actually extremely passionate about agile. I've just never been able to put the name to it. So I started going further into that path and looking at other agile meetups that were also of interest, and discovered that there's a lot of people there that, although I thought I was very inexperienced, they listened to me and said, "Oh, that's fantastic knowledge about this." And it gave me a lot of self-confidence there to then take that, I guess, the next step and start investigating what does that mean in terms of career, because it was something that I was passionate about. So as part of my self-assessment, I looked at it and said, do I want to become a Scrum Master? Do I want to become a product owner? Do I want to become an agile coach? Ultimately, I settled on, I didn't settle. I decided that I wanted to focus very much on helping other people to be the best they can be. And with my technical background, I decided that my best position was to be in a technical leadership role rather than in an agile specific role. Having made that decision, I am still very passionate about agile, and I'm sure our Scrum Masters at work and our product owners at work will tell everyone that I'm a pain in the ass, because I love telling them how to do their job and how to improve things and how to make it better for other people. But I try to do that in a way that's helpful. But it's just something that I am passionate about. So identifying where I could add value was a big part of it. I guess coupled with that, I also identified my weak points.
Oh, that's also pretty important.
And in some ways it was, at least equal, if not more so. I think identifying the weak points gave me the chance to find solutions to overcome them. I look back 12 or 18 months ago, if you'd invited me to talk here, I would have said no. It was that simple. I wouldn't have had the confidence for it. I wouldn't have been comfortable on video. Now I'm more than happy to sit here and good luck making me shut up. I actually make a conscious effort to stop talking sometimes and go, I should probably shut up now. But I guess in facilitating that, I've done some video coaching. I'm doing a public speaking course at the moment, which is an interesting one to do remotely via video. But anyway, and I'm looking at ways that I can actively get out there and improve my skills on that side of it. And I'm already finding benefits from that in the workplace as well. So finding those weak points and then actively working to resolve them, but at the same time, finding the strengths that I didn't know I had, I think are the two important bits out of
Brilliant. So I can so resonate to your story. I mean, yours was spanned across years, but mine was kind of shorter. So my journey started a couple of years back as well. I mean, I had a fixer. So by the way, Martha on YouTube mentioned, just commented, you are referring to growth rather than fixed mindset, which is exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, when I was talking earlier about just having the fixed mindset. So that, thanks for putting it in the nicer words than what I could do. Thanks for that, Martha. So that's what exactly happened in the past 1 year for me as well. I always labeled myself as antisocial and a person who can't talk to strangers. But look at me now; I can't stop talking. You know, when it's something that I know about, or when it's a topic that I know that I'm good at, I can keep talking and keep talking and keep talking. But I still have those introvert qualities in me. But I've worked on it. Just like you, I've worked with a public speaking coach. You probably already know Jody, and that kind of opened me up a lot. And now I actually enjoy doing these events, and I don't have a problem coming up on video. So you never know what ticks you. I mean, you might think that you've figured out your life, but it might be something completely different, or something completely you hate. Or, you know, once you invest on what your weaknesses are and figure out, hey, these could be my strengths, it kind of opens up a totally different door. You never know about that.
Yeah, there's a great graphic I've seen that shows, it's got some concentric circles. There's sorry, I'm just trying to think of it all. There's the comfort zone, the fear zone, the growth zone, and the learning zone and the growth zone. And I guess through this journey, I've tried to keep myself either in the learning or growth zone. Occasionally, I've recognized that I'm starting to burn out because I keep myself in those zones far too much. I have to shrink myself back to the comfort zone and just go, no, it's okay. I don't have to keep expanding. It's okay to stop. Just have a rest, recuperate from it. But what I've discovered is that time where I'm there going, crawling back to the comfort zone and keeping in that little circle, I'm consolidating all of that learning and growth and using it to improve myself still. I'm just doing it in a much slower fashion that's more comfortable. And then when I go back and try to head out to that growth, the learning and growth zones again, I find that I've already taken another step beyond where I was. So yeah, in terms of confronting some of those fears and making sure that we grow, there's a lot of benefit there. And I've found that, I guess, the personal branding journey has enabled me to do that. And in some ways, it's actually driven me to do it by going, there's so much more out there that I didn't realize I was capable of. And with a little bit of coaching or mentoring, I've been able to take some quite large leaps compared to where I used to be.
Absolutely. I've seen that concentric circles, I don't know what to say it, a flow or diagram or whatever it is. And it actually makes sense. And I like the way you mentioned that when you come back to comfort zone, it's just that you can take your time and figure out what's happening around you rather than being competitive. But that staying in that phase is actually valuable as well. So very, very interesting point you shared there. We have a question on YouTube from Maria. She's asking, I would like if you could share how you don't get drained after adding value to people. I get overwhelmed occasionally. So I think you're the right person to answer this, Michael.
Oh, I get drained. I get very, very drained. I'll use an example of a previous manager that I had. He was incredibly introverted, but no one knew it. I've seen him stand up in front doing a company town hall type meeting and presenting to the whole company and hosting the meeting for half an hour to an hour. And he was the most boisterous person you've ever seen, full of life, really, really good at voice projection, kept the whole crowd energized. For half an hour to an hour after one of those meetings, if you saw him at his desk, you'd swear he was asleep. And he just drained himself that much doing it. I'm in a situation now where I've lost count, especially with my new role. I spend a lot of time in video calls. I find them very draining. I've lost count. I would have to ask my partner if she's kept count of how many times I've fallen asleep on the couch right before dinner.
Oh, really? So, I think there's a term to it. People call it Zoom fatigue or something like that.
But in this case, it's not just because of Zoom. It's because I am an introvert. That's how I got into it. That's why I became a coder. It was like, oh, I can do this and not have to deal with people. Somewhere along the lines, I became interested in people. So I've started trying to help them and enable them. And yes, it takes a lot of energy, but I found ways that I can recover from that more quickly. It can be little things like instead of taking a lunch break at work, I've scheduled in 2 half-hour coffee breaks, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And I find that works better for me because it means I have 2 breaks during the day, not one long one. And during those breaks, while we're working from home, I go outside. I go and have a walk around the garden, or I go and check the mail, just anything to get me out of the house.
Yeah.
Before the whole COVID situation, I ran a walking group that every Sunday we would go out for about a 10 to 20 kilometre walk.
Oh yeah, I've heard of those.
Yeah, and so that was 3 or 4 hours, and I used that as time to re-energize myself. I'm going to have another exploration session soon when we go back to the office because I've moved house. But I used to walk to work every day, so I would flick from my home sort of mindset into my work mindset during that 45-minute walk to work. Then on the way home, I'd go from the work mindset into the home mindset. And it often got to the point I would get home and my partner would say, "How was work?" And it's like, I don't know. I've kind of forgotten it already. But the next morning, someone could ask me something and I'd remember that detail from yesterday. So it was, I managed to find a way to separate home and work for myself.
That's really good.
And I found that was very important. So I had 2 different energy reserves then. And while I was at home, my work energy was regenerating. While I was at work, my home energy regenerated. It's interesting. There's no magic way to fix it. You've just got to keep experimenting.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way to explain that. Thanks for that, Michael.
I think just one more thing.
Go for it. I understand the point that you mentioned that we can't keep you shut during right now. So yeah, go ahead for it.
Yeah, I think the one other bit is be open and honest with the people that you're dealing with. If you're struggling with energy, and especially if it's with your team, talk to them about it. Let them know, and let them know that you're going to try experimenting on a few things. And if you start getting short with them, or they can see that you're getting frustrated, tell them it's okay to call you out on it. Don't take offense to it. Just go, cool, I obviously need a 5-minute break. I'm going to walk away.
Yeah.
And everyone's pretty cool with it. Yeah. They're all human as well. They have these failings, so they'll be more than happy to accept it and help you on your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's come back to personal branding now. What advice would you give to someone who is looking to explore, or someone who is trying to figure out what next? So where do you start? I mean, what is the starting point? For me, the trigger was my move to Melbourne. That's where a huge change in my whole life actually triggered the change in thoughts. But otherwise, what would be your advice on where do you start on exploring stuff?
Yeah, I guess for me it was a slow start. I didn't recognize that I needed it, so it just sort of happened. In terms of, if you're at a point where you can recognize that you need to do something, the first bit is probably spend a lot of time self-assessing, work out where you're at and where you want to be. I've had a couple of really interesting challenges on the journey, and one of them I found I've actually recommended to a few other people, so I'll issue the challenge to everyone who's watching. Write your perfect job description. It is extremely challenging because you have to identify what are all the bits that mean, like, if you were able to present that to an employer and they would create that exact job, and you want that to be a job that you're going to love because they've created a job for you. So I found that really challenging, but it helped me to identify what I really wanted to do. It probably took me the better part of 3 weeks working on it a little bit each night, going back, fine-tuning it, removing items, that sort of thing. But a lot of that was self-assessment, working out the items that I was passionate about, working out where my key skills were, working out what was going to keep me interested in something in the long term. What were the bits that were absolute deal breakers for a job? Would I, if there was one item that was part of a job, would I just say, no, that job is not for me?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm aware of jobs like that. I've turned jobs down because of it. One of the things I was very passionate about is working for an employer that is growing. I went to a job interview. Everything about the place sounded really good until I said, what do you see the team looking like in 2 years?
Yeah.
They said, maybe 1 or 2 more staff.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is not for me. Sorry, I'm out.
Okay.
And that was it. We stopped wasting each other's time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very much self-assessing, work out what all of the key points are that you want in a job. What are the key, the key tasks? What are the key skills? And then start looking for that particular role. In terms of, at the same time, you're also going to identify what are the things that you're going to see as weak points, and that's where you can go and seek the coaching and mentoring for them. And that's, I guess, the first step.
Yeah.
After that, you then start looking at what comes next.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree. Personal branding is all about you. I mean, when Michael said that, write your perfect job description, write this completely in your perspective. Do not take social or peer pressure into it, or do not take the perfect job picture into it. There is no perfect job. You decide what is perfect for you and what actually ticks you. If you, when you're writing it down, if you think, hey, that's something that everyone does, so I should also probably do, then that's probably not what Michael means here. But what he mentioned by writing down the job description is exactly what is it that ticks you and what is it that you love to do.
Yeah, and so I came up with things in mind like I want to help others to be the best they can be. That was something that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
I know other people where they go, I want to write the best code ever.
Yeah.
That's fine. If you're a coder, that's perfect.
Yeah.
But I'd move past that. And so my view was, although I said, I think it was, I want to help people be the best they can be. I put in brackets after it, especially developers.
Yeah.
Because I know that's something that I'm passionate about.
All right.
I also included stuff like I want to do coaching and mentoring as part of the role. So yeah. But again, what's right for you?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on LinkedIn. I think the answers are related and probably not very related to what we are talking now, but I think still it's relevant. So Rajan on LinkedIn says, I'm a junior .NET developer because of lack of local experience, not getting into job in my field. So that's one. And the next one is, I have 16 years, this from Amit. I have 16 years into IT and my passion is to help people and organizations to find their answers to their why. Can I move out of IT and get into education and nonprofit in terms of project management, agile? So I think both deals with the aspects of how your personal brand can impact, in this case, your job search or your career choice. So what are your thoughts on that, Michael?
Yeah. So I think it sounds as though in both cases they've already done a reasonable amount of the self-assessment. One of the key things I've found is, especially when you're talking to recruiters, find a way to get known by the recruiter in advance. So before they receive your resume, they know your name. And use that relationship. So if you're not successful in a role, you can ask them, why not? What are my weak points? What are the bits that I wasn't up to speed on? And use that as a way of finding what the items are that you need to improve. At the same time, position yourself correctly. A lot of the time people don't get a role because they don't know how to describe their skill set correctly. They don't give themselves enough credit. One of the key things that I learned is I undersell myself. So I had to go out there and try to oversell myself. And what I discovered was I was actually still underselling myself. So I didn't recognize my own skill set. So it's very much, when it comes to, I guess, those roles, it's getting the message across to people that you have those abilities, that you have the core skills, you have the people skills to do that job properly. when I say people skills, it's even a lot of technical roles. It's still about people skills. You need to talk to others to find out what's required. You need to know how to do that nicely. You need to know how to absorb that information. And when someone says you've done something wrong, you need to be able to deal with that in a nice way.
Yeah.
So making sure that you've got all of those skills there, getting across to the recruiters and to the hiring managers that this is what you're really passionate about, that you want to do this. You're not just doing it because it pays the bills.
Yeah.
So there's a whole aspect to that. And I guess that's where some of the personal branding work that I've done really came in with, one, writing this job description, but then converting that into what am I passionate about, writing my LinkedIn profile, making sure that I've got a shorter version of that to include on my resume, making sure that I've got a verbal version of that, which I still haven't managed to quite get right, so I won't go there. So when I get introduced to someone at a meetup, I can say that. And when people say, oh, so what do you do? I have an answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't just turn around and go, oh, I'm a developer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that self exploration is really important, and that's the first step. But that's a first step. So second step is equally important, right? You have to market, or you have to paint a picture on everyone or to the world that, hey, this is who I am. How did you go about that?
I'd almost say that's the third step.
Sorry?
I'd almost say that's a third step.
Oh, yeah. What's the second step?
The second step is aligning your messaging before you start sending those messages out.
Yeah.
So whether it's your resume, whether it's your LinkedIn profile, whether it's comments you put on LinkedIn, whether it's your own blog, your YouTube channel, TikTok, whatever the in thing is today, or whatever methods you choose to promote yourself, you need to have an alignment between all of that content and what you're saying your passions are.
Yeah.
If you're changing industry, you also need to make sure that you translate everything from your old industry to the new industry. So no one else is going to invest the time doing that. That's your job.
Yeah.
By doing all of those things and preparing for it, then you're ready to, when you start putting that content out there and start promoting yourself, people are going to see it and go, this person has one message and one message only.
Yeah.
And they understand what it is. Now, you may not just choose one message. It's okay to have a couple of messages, but they've got to be closely aligned. You can't be saying, oh, you can't be a Labor supporter and working for the Liberal Party, for example.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you could have a heightened political interest and work for either party, just as a random idea.
Yeah.
So make sure your messaging is aligned with where you're going.
Yeah, I like the phase 2 that you mentioned there. That's also very important. Otherwise, there'll be a disconnect over there. So yeah, now that we are in phase 3, what are your suggestions?
So, I guess in my case, I pretty much stuck to LinkedIn and only LinkedIn. Part of that is I have too many family members connected to me on Facebook, and I don't want to market to them for my career.
Yeah.
It's not going to provide me any benefit.
Yeah.
Especially at the time I started doing my branding exercises, I wasn't really comfortable on video, so I didn't go down the YouTube path.
Yeah.
In terms of something like TikTok, I think I'm too old for that. Maybe I need a few more grey hairs and then I'll jump on there. I've never been any good with Instagram and that sort of thing. So I chose LinkedIn because it's the right sort of environment for me and where I was wanting to go. I also set up my own personal blog, and I set up a Medium account. So my particular style of branding was I started writing a lot of articles. They don't get as much reach as posts and that sort of thing on LinkedIn, but when someone reads it, it's because they're really interested. And I made sure that I always posted, or any of my content was about my personal experience, what I thought, what I felt. So it was very much telling people about me, what my interests are, and how it aligns with the role that I want in the future. I didn't have to say it aligned with the role I wanted. That became obvious just because I was constantly talking about the same type of topics, and it painted a picture of the role that I wanted. So I did that. I also made sure that I followed appropriate people on LinkedIn who had similar interests. A lot of those people I met through meetups, and I was going to meetups that interested me. Far too many of them, some would say. So I found that there were probably 2 or 3 groups of meetups that had the same people generally attending them, and they were on similar topics. And so that really presented to everyone what my brand was. The fact that they knew if they went to an agile meetup, there's a good chance I'd be there. If they went to a leadership meetup, there's a good chance I'd be there. So all of this was painted into a brand. If I went to a conference, I'd go and write an article about the talks that I went to. And if I'd gone to some talk that wasn't quite aligned with my brand, I wouldn't write about that one, but I'd write about all the others.
Okay.
So it was, again, I filtered the content, and I made sure that I published things on multiple different systems, a whole lot of other technical bits that I won't go into there about how I enabled that to work best for me in my case. And I also became a lot more active on LinkedIn, commenting on other people's items. And just generally commenting, making some short posts when I could, tagging people that I knew would respond. And also the other aspect of it was, even though I couldn't necessarily gain a benefit by connecting to someone or by liking someone else's post, I would often connect other people. So I worked out about, I think it's 10 or 12% of my LinkedIn connections are recruiters. Probably about half of them I talk to quite regularly, to the point where they'll often come to me and go, do you know anyone that would be right for this role? Or I'll be connecting someone who's looking for a new role to the recruiters that are going to be right for them. That doesn't help me directly, but in 5 years' time, maybe I'll be working for one of those people, or maybe one of those recruiters will find me my next role. Who knows?
So I like that. I mean, I always see you tagging so many people. You have tagged me in several of the posts as well. So I always find it surprising that you actually remember, hey, these are the persons that I have to tag, and you actually do that. So that kind of connects us and makes us feel that you actually value this relationship and you actually remember me rather than being just a random connection. So that adds a lot of value, and that kind of builds your foundation on what next. And just like you mentioned, I mean, I say this to most of my connections as well. 10 years down the line, you might be a CEO of some organization, and if I need some help, I can come to you if I've helped you during this time. So you never know what happens in the future.
And I think one of the other bits that I probably should have mentioned is I'm actually really bad at having the one-on-one conversations in any of the messaging systems. I'm sure you can relate to that, Vinesh, where you've sent me a message, you get a 1 or 2 word reply, and that's it.
I mean, we usually get first to the network walks, and if you're not there, I'm usually awkward. I'm like, shit, what do I do now? Right? So,
But I look at our LinkedIn conversation history, and it's probably you ask a question, you get a 1 or 2 word response. And I'm just not good at that. But at the same time, we maintain the relationship through tagging each other on LinkedIn on things that are relevant for the other person. And then there might be a comment or a like or a reaction. And that's enough to maintain a relationship. You don't have to go and have deep discussions with people. You don't have to catch up with them for a coffee every week or every month.
Absolutely.
You have to interact with them in some method, especially in something like LinkedIn or in the business case, especially, and recruiters are a great one. You don't have to have regular contact to maintain a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to check. My LinkedIn Live says there is only one person watching this, which is kind of weird because I'm still getting questions. So if you're watching this, please put a hi just to make sure that everything is working all right. The video is not cut, the audio is not cut, or something of that sort. Just put a hi. We have a question on YouTube from Martha again. Thanks for the questions, Martha. What value do you place on mentorship? I think Michael mentioned having a coach mentor. So,
So I'm still looking for my perfect mentor. I've never found one, and I kind of know the reasons for that. So instead of, I guess, talking from personal experience, I can speak about what I've heard from a lot of other people. And there's a fairly consistent message that comes through. And I guess the key bit is it's okay to have multiple mentors. And a mentor doesn't have to perfectly align with you, but they need to align with one aspect of what you're needing the mentoring for. So if you, for example, find someone who's really good with business and you connect with them in the business sense, that might be a really good mentor for your business knowledge. In terms of code, say you're a programmer, you might find a different mentor who helps you with coding. And that's okay. You can have that diversity of mentorship where they each have their own specialty. In terms of coaching, and I guess I've viewed the difference between mentorship and coaching is mentorship is someone who's going to be able to answer a direct question, is going to help you with making decisions, is going to provide advice. A coach is more someone, and a mentor will often be free. Some of them, there's a blurred line between coaching and mentorship these days where someone's paid. A coach is almost always paid. They're going to make the decision. They're going to sort of keep prodding you until you come up with the correct answer for you. So I guess that's how I see the difference. And in terms of coaching, it's finding someone that you trust, that knows the right questions to ask for what you're doing, and can help you through that journey. And a coach you may get for a short period, then disappear for a while, come back again, anytime you need that assistance. A mentor is more likely to be someone you have a long-term relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I read this in Peter Cook's book about thought leadership. He mentions that mentorship is when you have taken that journey and you can explain it. But coaching is you not necessarily have taken the journey, but you have the tools to explore. You can give that tools and you can do the work and explore what it is that you need. So that's beautifully said. Yeah. So we are getting a lot of hi hellos. So yeah, definitely we are being seen. And Akhil wrote a comment saying, I remember Michael corrected the term of social distancing to physical distancing. Now the Australian government has to modify their statement. So you started it, Michael.
I think it's the worst possible term out there, social distancing. One of the bits I love, and I'm pretty sure it was my manager at work, our chief product officer. He turned around and said, as a team, we've never been further apart, but we've never been closer together.
Absolutely. I can't agree.
And yeah, we've become so much more deliberate in communication. And I think it's going to change, at least for me, it's changing how our workplace will be. We'll be very deliberate in our communication moving forward because we've seen the benefit of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me take one more question. This is from Jeremy on LinkedIn. He's asking any tips for recent graduates or people early in their career regarding personal branding or exploring. That can be a tricky one.
Yeah, I think especially early in your career, don't be afraid to explore. That's probably my key takeaway. Build your network, but build a wide network. And I'm at the point in my career, my network is quite narrow because I know where my passions are and I know what makes me tick and I know where I want to go next. So I tailor everything to that. When you're early in your career, cast the net wide, get to know a lot of people, and explore what your passions are. You may already know some, but there'll be others that surprise you. As I said, 5 years ago, I was going to be a coder until the day that I died. I dare say I was probably the sort of person I would have died at my desk while writing code. These days, I'd rather not be coding. So you'll find that things will change over your life, over your career. So don't be afraid to explore. For the bits that you know you're already passionate about, find roles that include that, but don't worry too much about the other bits unless it's a complete deal breaker for you, because you can learn so much on those roles. I guess one of the other things is in terms of getting your message out there and becoming known, anytime you learn something, don't be afraid to repost it online, but do it in your own words. So one of the classics that I always hear is every time someone explains something, they will explain it in a different way. And by explaining it in a different way, that means someone else is going to learn from it.
Yeah.
Who
Absolutely.
would otherwise have been unable to learn that skill. So I know there was a set of blog posts I did about how I set up my blog. One of the people that I met through code mentoring I write in text. I do walls of text on my blog. Someone took that, went through it step by step, re-recorded it with their own words as they followed my instructions, but they did it on video, and they published that on YouTube. And they then had other people who took that and republished it again in their own words. We're all saying the same thing, but we're saying it in different ways.
Yeah.
So we've now got a lot of people that are running that particular setup. And it was just because we were all willing to explain it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it. And it's always good to see when someone else picks things up and pick things you have done and sharing it in their own words. So that kind of gives us a feeling that we have inspired them to do it. So that's a really interesting story.
And I guess the other bit on that, just quickly, is when you get certifications and you choose to post about them on LinkedIn, a lot of people I see, they post, I don't know, they get a Docker Essentials certification and they go, hey, I got certified in Docker Essentials.
Yay, congrats.
Great, what does that mean? Tell people about what you learned. What value did it give you? What value can you now give to someone else because of that?
Couldn't agree more.
That's branding.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So yeah, that's always, otherwise it's more like your journal rather than you did this, and which is not very useful for anyone else. So coming back to personal branding, Michael, what is the end goal here? What benefits have you personally, or what benefits have you seen people get out of personal branding?
I guess for me, there is no end goal. It's a journey. So part of personal branding for me was setting myself up for the next stage of my journey. And through doing all of my personal branding exercises, whether they be paid, whether they be do it yourself, the one thing that I've learned most of all is that I cannot stop. I have to keep doing this. If I stop, then I've thrown everything away. I can take breaks in there, like I haven't posted anything on LinkedIn for a few weeks because I have a new role, I've moved house, there's a lot of change happening in my life, the whole COVID lockdown, it's taken its toll. I've reduced my amount of output, but I know that I'm going to get back into it in the next week or two. So there's no end goal as such, but it's about setting yourself up for the next steps on your journey. So, investing, it's, I guess, a constant investment in your future. It's, for me, it was very much about needing to make a significant change in my career in terms of in fulfilling my happiness. But now I've made that change, I recognize that I need to keep getting my name out there. I need to keep making sure that the right people know who I am. I think it was Jonathan Maltby who said to me, and I think he may have been paraphrasing someone else anyway, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you.
Yeah.
And that's something that really runs true in my head. I need to make sure.
I say that in every meetup that I go to.
Yeah. I make sure that I keep putting my name out there, make sure the right people know me.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, in my position where I am responsible for a team, part of that is making sure that developers know who I am. So when I want to employ someone, I can go to people and go, do you want to work for me? And they say yes. Part of it as well is making sure that more senior executives know me. So when I next look for a job, I can go to them and go, do you want me to take that role? And they say yes. It's constant, and it doesn't matter what level of career I'm at. I could get to Bill Gates' level and go, cool, I still need to personal brand because there's someone out there who doesn't know who I am or who doesn't know the benefit I can provide to them.
Yeah.
So it's a never-ending process.
That's probably the right way to put it. By the way, Lavi has a comment for you. She says one of the takeaway I had from Michael was that if you're able to explain something in layman's terms, you know it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'm explaining this in layman's terms. Otherwise, I'm just deluding
Yeah.
myself that I know what I'm talking about.
Amit replied with true that. So I'm assuming that you are doing the job right. Martha is asking another question on YouTube. This is related to your answer that you just said. What is the next stage of your journey? You mentioned that you're figuring out what your next stage of your journey is with when we were looking out for it. So what is it?
Yeah. So I guess for me, part of what I had to work out, and I've worked this out and I've taken action, and I think I've succeeded in the step I was looking at the time. I was a developer. My job was coding all day, every day. That was basically it. I took a massive step into a role where I think in the 10 weeks I've been in the role, I've written about maybe 100 lines of code in total. Most of that was because I chose to do it on a weekend because it's a hobby now. So I took that massive step to become more of a leader or the manager type role. That change was huge. I'm still recovering from it. I don't know where I will go from here, but I'm loving what I'm doing now.
That's good to hear.
I guess I know with the organisation I'm with, I'm looking at our long-term plans. I'm already looking at what's our 1 year, 2 year, 5 year plan for the team that I'm looking after, and I'm making sure that not only aligns with me, but aligns with what all the team members want to help them grow. So at this point, I honestly don't see myself taking another significant step. I see it more being a natural progression within the organisation, where as the company changes and as I change, it will be very much in alignment. So yeah, at the moment there is no next step for me because I'm not ready to take another step.
I think you've already taken a long journey. Now, probably stay in that comfort zone and figure out what's happening.
Yeah, I tend to say my last step wasn't so much a step as a jump, and a very big one.
So, next question for you, Michael. I know you already answered this, but for people who are actually new to personal branding and they don't know what it is about, two questions here. One thing, I think we discussed this earlier. It can be expensive if you're paying coaches to help you along the journey, right? And it can be really, really expensive. But like you mentioned, of course, you can do the research and figure things out. And when you pay such an investment and when you actually don't know what you're getting out of it, you might think about a time frame as well, as in how long does it typically take to reap the benefits. So what are your thoughts on both of these?
Yeah, so I guess I'm on the first point. It doesn't have to be expensive. All of the information is out there. All of the information is publicly accessible. There's a lot of people who have been through personal branding journeys that are happy to just help others. They're happy to take on a mentoring role. They're happy to just chat. So if you want to do it and you're happy to take a bit of time to do it, then go down the DIY path. Do it yourself. If, like me, you're there going, I need a change and I need a change now, it's going to be expensive. It's going to take a while, but it's going to be a lot quicker than a do-it-yourself job. So over about the last, I'd say 18 months, maybe 2 years for me, I've spent well over $20,000 on this journey.
Do you think it's worth it at this point?
For me, yes. That's very much an investment in my entire future. I've gone and done a personal branding masterclass where we've actively worked for several months on my resume, on my LinkedIn, on making sure my blog posts were aligned, working out how to best define who I am and what makes me tick. I'm doing, as I said before, I'm doing a public speaking course at the moment. I've started doing some video courses. I've bought a whole lot of hardware and other bits to help me get set up for other exercises that I'm going to be doing in the near future. So I have a whole AV set up that I can take to a meetup and record myself so I can then publish it online if I give a presentation. They're all little things that help with the branding, but they add up in cost. There are ways around all of that by doing it yourself. In terms of my journey, it's probably about 12 months where I started just throwing money at it, throwing time at it, and getting stuff done. That set up a real base where I knew where I wanted to go. I knew how to market myself. And it was just a matter of I have to hold out for what the next job is, hold out for that next step. It was probably, I held out for 6 to 8 months, I think, until I found a job that I thought I'd be really happy with. And through that journey, I met some amazing people that helped me on the journey, so recruiters that took the time to get to know me. And then in the case of the job I got, I think it was about 6 months from when I first talked to this recruiter. I didn't hear anything from him. And then one day he calls up and he goes, I think I found the right job for you.
Awesome.
I went to the interview. Over the next few interviews, things changed a little bit in terms of the job, and I accepted the job, and here I am, extremely happy.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah, and I guess the benefits of it are never going to end as such. I'm always going to know about personal branding, but I'm also now taking that a step further and going, how can I apply my personal branding knowledge to the company for employer branding? How can I make us become an employer of choice? It's very similar. It's just applying it in a different way.
Yep, so, absolutely. So that looks like an interesting path as well. To our viewers, we'll be wrapping up soon. So if you have any questions, please put it out on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. To the last question, which I've at least written down, you definitely make a lot of mistakes in this journey, right? So can you share some that you have gone through or you've seen people making? And it can be a daunting task, looking into yourself for such a long time. It's easy to give up. So just making things aware for anyone who's going to take this journey so that they don't give up easily.
I guess the first mistake I made, and this is before I started the journey, and I learned very quickly during the journey that I couldn't keep making this mistake, was I was not being true to myself. I was pretending to be someone I wasn't because I thought that's what other people wanted. So I guess the first thing is be true to yourself. Make sure that that's above all else. Be passionate about what you're passionate about. Don't pretend to be passionate about something because you think that someone else wants you to. If that means that if you have to act a certain way around your family because that's their expectation, don't carry that over to work if that's not the real you. I think the other one was I made a mistake at one point I think the saying is I jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire. So I made a change just for the sake of making a change, and I actually ended up worse off. Now, I did it with the best of intentions, and it was a risk that I had to take at the time. But look, with the benefit of hindsight, I should have done a bit more exploratory work on that and worked out, is the risk worthwhile? At the time, if I'd done that, I probably wouldn't have taken that risk. I would have held out longer until I found the perfect next step. I guess in terms of mistakes, you're going to make a lot along the way. You're going to make stupid comments on LinkedIn or Facebook that are going to cost you a job or are going to mean that you get into a flame war with someone. You're going to doubt yourself because you get turned down for a job. You're going to feel bad about having to turn a job down because it's not right for you. But everyone, if you're open and honest with people, they will all be along. They'll come along for the journey with you. So yeah, I guess a lot of it is when you don't be afraid to make a mistake. They are learning experiences. Agile has a really good saying of fail fast. And that means it's okay to make mistakes. Just make sure that you do them quickly, you recognize them as a mistake quickly, and then you take corrective action. So if you do something and it's having a negative impact, stop doing it. That's all that it takes. You can't go and change the past. Don't dwell on it. And I guess the other thing is don't doubt yourself. Just because I've talked to people who've been unemployed for months or years. I know I spent a lot longer in a role than I wanted to because I was holding out for the right step. It's don't feel bad about that. Don't take it on board. Just accept it and move on. And when you have those off days and it's all piling up to be too much, just find the way to get away from it. Give yourself the space to think and to work through it. For me, that was walking. So at one stage, I walked from South Yarra to Frankston, which is about a 7.5 or 8 hour walk. I did that with no music, just the thoughts in my head. By the time I got to the end, I had got to the point where my mind was empty. I had nothing left to think through.
That's very interesting.
And I felt so free because the only thing I'd had for 7 or 8 hours was my own thoughts. And I dealt with so many little niggling issues that I didn't realize were issues. So after I dealt with the one or two big ones of what am I going to do? What should my next step be? It got down to, how do I get out of this job? And it was like, I came up with the answer in my head of just keep trying. And it's like, okay, that's a good answer. What's my next thought? There isn't one. What do I do now? I'll get on the train and go home.
That's a very fun way to put it, yeah.
Find what works for you. Find your safe space to think, and make sure that you have the ability, especially for those with families, make sure you have the ability to get away from them, to have that space to think, the space where you just get you time, because when you get interrupted, you can't have that clear thought process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at the same time, if you do have that family, remember to give your partner that same space, because if you're taking it, they need it too.
That looks like advice from your personal experience, Michael.
To a certain degree, but more advice from seeing the bad effects on other relationships.
Yeah, I absolutely love the way you explained it, and just like Lavi mentioned before, you are good at explaining things in layman's terms. So we have some questions today from Chanel on LinkedIn. She has two questions. Any tips for students graduating this term given the crisis? And the second question is, how can we best leverage a master's degree?
Okay, so I guess I should preface this by saying I never completed uni. I'm probably not the right person to really give advice. But I guess in terms of, especially for new graduates, it doesn't matter whether it's a master's degree or an undergrad degree. Make sure that you're telling people about the value you can bring to a company. Now, especially if you're a developer, you're going to be a cost to a company initially, and they're aware of that when they're hiring a junior developer. Mm-hmm. But it's about telling them why longer term you're going to be able to bring them value. So the fact that you're going to assume that you're going to be successful in their graduate program and continue working with them, and what are your passions and interests, and how does that help them? I guess that's one part of it. The other is, especially, and this is probably more for those that are still going through university and haven't yet graduated, try and keep any of your public facing data of like positive and helping you in the future. My partner is currently studying. She's doing a Bachelor of IT. They had a project that finished the other day, and my first comment to her was, have you checked it into your GitHub?
Yeah.
And she's like, no, why? I was like, because in 4 years, that's going to show your employer the journey you've taken to get to where you're at.
Yeah.
So look at all of that side of it. Do something to differentiate yourself. One that I've probably given this secret away to far too many people, so I'll just tell the whole world now. When you're looking for a job, find a way to connect with the recruiter that makes you stand out from everyone else. Mm-hmm. Now, my trick with that was when I saw a job ad, I would call a recruiter and ask a question about the job. Now, once I had asked that question, I'd get a response. I'd take that on board. I'd try to very quickly think of some other questions and go, I've got some more questions. Can I buy you a coffee?
Yeah.
And I became known from a number of recruiters as that guy who offered to buy me coffee. All of them took me up on the offer because normally they're the ones paying for the coffee.
Yeah.
And I made sure that when I got to talk to them, I had some questions about the job, but I used it as a chance to get to know them.
Yeah.
Once I'd done that, then I sent through my resume and my application for the role. Mm-hmm. So I'd already differentiated myself from everyone else. So find that little bit that makes you unique, mm-hmm. and make sure that the recruiter knows who you are beforehand. and that will help you to get that first role. I guess in terms of taking advantage of a master's, if you don't have any industry experience in Australia, a master's is not going to be a huge benefit. You're the same as every other person who's just graduated because you don't have the industry experience. So just work with that knowledge, and you're competing for those graduate positions. You're competing for those junior positions, even though you've got the master's degree. Once you've got some experience, whether that be you've got a master's and then experience, or whether it be you've got experience and then a master's, you can use that degree to take you to the next level. And so that will help you if you want to move out of the sort of more hands-on roles and more into a leadership type role, depending on which particular master's you've got. I'm kind of working with a bit of an assumption of IT here, just because that's the field I work in.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess in other industries, you may need, the master's may just be a requirement to move from, say, a mid-level to a senior, or from a junior to a senior. In IT, you can make it onto you can make the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as a developer that has never done uni. So the masters will help you with moving into a more leadership type role where it's more people-based rather than code-based. In that
Completely agree. Thanks for that, Michael. So I think we have a last question from Don in YouTube, and Hussein says a +1 to that. So what advice would you give to people who aren't sure whether they want to take a leadership role and want to decide whether it's for them?
I guess part of it, for me at least, was find some junior developers, or find some juniors, in my case developers, who you can mentor. And if you start enjoying mentoring them, then that's at least one bit of the role that you're going to enjoy. I guess a secondary phase of that is think about when you're going to have an awkward conversation with someone who's not performing, and you have to put them on a performance management plan, or you have to dismiss them. And could you wake up and do that, could you do that and then wake up the next morning and feel okay about yourself? So there's a couple of things that you're going to need to do on the management side of it. If you're meaning leadership in terms of having a positive influence, anyone can do that. Even the most junior developer or the most junior staff member could do that, just by the way you act and being open to other people and helping other people whenever you can. So I guess there's the two aspects, and there's a bit of a blur between them these days. A leader is not always a manager, and a manager is not always a leader. And that's important to recognize. So anyone can be a leader. It's about influence. If you're promoted into a management role, there's going to be bits that you like and bits that you don't. You can experiment with the leadership stuff very easily by doing coaching and mentoring. There's meetup groups. A good example is the code mentoring one that I'm involved with, where we go out there and just help other people. And if you're enjoying that, you're probably going to enjoy leadership. You still may not enjoy management. So yeah, it could be a bit of a catch. I guess the other thing is, depending on the size of the company you work for, if there's an opportunity to step into more of a management role, take it. Talk to the appropriate hiring managers. See if you can do it as what's generally, say, a 3-month secondment, or it could be a 3-month backfill of the position. So you can experiment, see if you like it. And at the end of the 3 months, you either go, no, I don't want the job, I want to go back to my old job, and your old job's there waiting. Or you go, I'm enjoying this, I would like to apply for the job permanently. And they might turn around and say, no, you're not good enough, sorry, go and get some more training. You go back to your old job, you start training up. Or they might go, great, let's do it.
Yep. That, I think, answers that questions, and we are about to conclude the session. By the way, Rana has a question on LinkedIn, and that question is specifically to you. When is the next No Walkie, No Coffee meetup happening?
No coffee, no walkie. Well, it won't be happening while we're in lockdown, I can guarantee that. I guess I got a bit slack with it because of a lot of changes in my life. So I'll be trying to organise one in the not too distant future after lockdown lifts.
Yeah.
However, I'm always open for other people to help organize them, and I'll happily be an attendee.
Yeah, that'll be fun too. So thank you so much for your time, Michael. That was definitely fun. We got a lot of insightful questions from LinkedIn and YouTube. I think Facebook doesn't have much activity. I might have to get rid of it if it's not of much use. But that was definitely fun. Thanks for all your insights.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was definitely fun, and the thoughts that you gave on personal branding, and hopefully that'll help a lot of people unravel their journey. I mean, I completely agree to sharing your story, because the way you share it, it can have a massive effect on someone else, and they will continue sharing their story, and it's kind of a ripple effect. And hopefully this chat session has helped on it. So we'll come back next week. I mean, I'll be doing this session every week, and in a couple of weeks' time, we have Josh Farr from Campus Consultancy joining us. So that'll be another fun session. So we'll keep this journey alive. So once again, thanks a lot, Michael, for being a part of this.
No, thank you to everyone for watching, and for those who I know have sent through LinkedIn connection requests. Sorry, I haven't responded yet. I will get there in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
But thank you for tuning in.
Yeah. Thank you.